Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. After being closed for more than 2 months, Jamaica's borders officially reopened today to all international tourists. More in this report.
Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett is expressing optimism that the requisite infrastructure is in place to deal with the return of tourists to the island. The protocols, contained in an 88-page document, targets all segments of the industry including accommodation, attractions, water sports, craft shops, shopping, cruise ports, airports, transport, restaurants and bars. Speaking following a tour of the Sangster International Airport on Sunday, Mr. Bartlett said he was positive that the measures implemented will help to keep the rate of COVID-19 down in the country.
The elements of sanitization and the infrastructure required to enable that have also been installed and in place. Technology has been implemented for photographic capture as well as temperature capture. The Ministry of Health has worked overtime, triple time, to try to ensure that all the key touch points to ensure that we have the layer of health security that is required to protect the destination and the visitor alike are in place.
JHTA President Omar Robinson says his association is pleased with the improvements at the airport. Mr. Robinson said hotels are ready.
We have a number of hotels, a handful of hotels reopening over the next day or two. And most of the hotels will reopen in July, but they are in the process of putting in all the safety procedures, implementing all the protocols and training and sensitizing their staff. But the industry is excited. We're ready to get the workers back. We're ready to get tourism reopened in a safe way.
Meanwhile, Medical Officer of Health for St. James, Dr. Tanique Bailey-Small, says there is need for improvement in the processes. She says the inefficiencies were noted over the past 2 weeks under the government's controlled re-entry program. Dr. Bailey says her team has addressed some of those issues, which should see the return of tourists to our island through our airports being much smoother. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
And the president of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, Lenworth Fulton, says the reopening of the tourist industry will have a positive spin-off on the agricultural sector. He says the sector experienced a downturn due to the closure of hotels. Despite the dry spell wreaking havoc on farming, Mr. Fulton said farmers will be able to meet the demands of the tourist sector.
We have reshaped agriculture, and when you look at there's a robust land reform, albeit it needs much more to it. And when you look at large farmer coming on stream, Michael Leachin out of Inzood, who have approximately 3,000 acres. When you look at the gas and Azan plan to go big in Shade House and so on. And when you look and propose a plan for irrigation with the Essex Valley and that plan to move the water from the Black River into the plains of St. Elizabeth, there is hope.
2 persons are dead and 5 others hospitalized, including a 3-year-old, following a motor vehicle accident on the Bottom Main Road in Manchester last night. One of the deceased has been identified as 22-year-old Akeem Powell, an accounting student of the University of Technology. The other, a woman, has only been identified as Anna Kay. It's understood that about 10:30, a Nissan Sunny motor car with 7 persons aboard was traveling along the Bottom Main Road when one of the tires blew out. They were traveling from Monroe in St. Elizabeth. The driver lost control of the vehicle, which later skidded into a Toyota Hiace minibus that was traveling in the opposite direction. Now, TVJ News has learned that the driver of the car died on the spot. Akeem and the others were taken to hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The others, including a 3-year-old child and the minibus driver, were treated and released. Still in Manchester, the parish is reporting a reduction in major crimes except murder. Data from the Jamaica Constabulary Force show that the parish recorded an increase of 1 murder for the period January 1 to June 6. Head of the Manchester Police Superintendent Gary Francis says the main challenge being experienced in the parish is conflict resolution.
Our dispute management skill seem to be somewhat not as developed as we'd want it, and a lot of those disputes end up physical, some of which end up in murders.
Superintendent Francis noted that the COVID-19 pandemic also had an impact on the murder rate.
In some divisions, that COVID would impact a reduction because people are somewhat under controlled environment. For us in Manchester, when we have people so close together, because of the number of conflict, it means that we would have an inverse relationship. So we might just have more of those conflicts that end up sometime with injury and in murder.
The Manchester Health Department is worried that there is widespread breeding of the Anopheles mosquito, which transmits malaria. The health department says its surveillance teams have found the mosquitoes in rare places such as concrete tanks. They're usually found in swampy areas. Chief Public Health Inspector for Manchester, Charmaine Palmer-Cross, outlined the measures being taken to control the increase. She says interventions have been carried out.
We have done one in, I think, is bottom St. Toulis. We did one in Robbins Hall. But Robbins Hall was really excessive breeding. So what we did, we actually go into these communities and were distributing fish or placing fish into some of these breeding containers. And we will continue to do that until we are satisfied. Our tire shop, garages, and so forth, we continue to monitor those.
The measures to deal with the mosquito remain the same as for the Aedes aegypti, which we are more accustomed to, that causes dengue, Zika, chickpea, yellow fever. So we use the fish because in the concrete tank, that is the best means of dealing with the mosquito in the concrete tank, but we would also have done our fogging operations as well.
They were both speaking at the recent monthly meeting of the Manchester Municipal Corporation. And we now take a break on Midday News, but we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back, continuing the news now. The police say the main suspect in Friday's deadly gun attack on police officers in Horizon Park, St. Catherine, had good knowledge of weapons and was known to the police. It's reported that Damian Hamilton shot and killed 2 officers and injured 2 others in an operation. Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program this morning, head of the Constabulary Communications Unit, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, says Hamilton was the target of the operation. The police team, which included 11 members, was shot at with an M16 on automatic fire. Hours after the incident, Hamilton was shot dead in Corville Gardens, St. Andrew. SSP Lindsay says investigators are still not clear if there were other shooters.
He was supposed to be the only target. But however, based on what we saw at the crime scene, it is possible that there could be other persons. The fact that we don't know who these persons are, so we don't have an identity, where an identity for him was very clear because he was already a target. Now they're going to have to look at the ballistic fence casing and everything. Ballistics will help us to determine the caliber of weapons fired and give an estimation as to how many persons may have been firing at the police at the time. So I know they are working quickly to get those answers. So hopefully we will know sooner than later.
SSP Lindsay says Superintendent Leon Clunis, who was among the 2 officers injured, is still in serious condition but steadily improving. The other policeman who was injured was released on the weekend. The opposition is taking aim at the economic performance of the government. Speaking at a PNP conference on Sunday, PNP President Dr. Peter Phillips argued that even before the COVID-19 pandemic, the government was not meeting its own growth targets.
All the economic targets have been missed for growth since 2016. Big talk of 5 in 4 is abandoned. And don't forget, even before the pandemic came, the result of economic outturn for the first quarter ending March was 1.7% decline in GDP for the quarter, year on year. Prices upon prices upon prices.
Time now for sports. Attorney at law Dr. Amir Crown who has previously represented Jamaican athletes in their anti-doping cases, says the matter of fairness is behind his decision to take on the anti-doping disciplinary case involving reigning women's 400-meter world champion Swala Eden Nasir. Crown and the fellow Trinidadian attorney Matthew Gale have been retained by the Nigerian-born Bahraini athlete who has been charged by the Athletics Integrity Unit AIU for whereabouts violation after allegedly missing 3 doping tests in a 12-month period. The AIU also said the violations were being investigated before Nasir's World Athletics Championships win in Doha, Qatar in October. It is also alleged that Nasir missed a 4th test in January of this year.
Case and similar cases in the past is I'm a big believer in the athlete being heard, and to the extent that I've reviewed this case, or like I say past cases, and if I believe there's merit to the athlete's claim or merit to the situation, then I'm more than happy to take on the case. I'm more than happy to do it pro bono if the athlete can't otherwise afford legal representation. But like I say, I'm a big believer in athletes being heard and in athletes, quote-unquote, having their day in court.
Dr. Crown, who most recently represented Jamaican sprinter Brianna Williams in her anti-doping disciplinary case in 2019, declined to comment on a recent Instagram live video in which Salwa said missing 3 drug tests was normal. He has also represented quarter-milers Riker Hilton and Dominic Blake in similar cases in the past. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon and a great week.